Jason, I'm not hearing you for some reason, but I'm doing fine. Let me see if that's on
That's
my
because my mic was muted, Pat. You need
There
my
we
mic.
go.
Yeah. So we're all good now.
We're all good now.
Welcome, everybody, to the Huddle, KGUN9's weekly streaming sports talk show. Take two here. I'm Jason Barr. It's only going to get better from here. I promise you. All right, Pat. Big story here. We'll get right to it. We'll start with our Huddle poll question. Anytime you've got a relocation, it's a pretty big deal. We got the Arizona Coyotes looking like they're on their way to Salt Lake City, and that could have implications here for the AHL team, the Tucson Roadrunners. So our Huddle poll question, the Roadrunners could be moving to Tempe. We'll get to that in a second. But if that happens, 1, this is wrong. It's Tucson's team. 2, all our teams end up leaving. Or 3, I feel burned by the Coyotes franchise. Pat, are you going with 1, 2, or 3?
I wish there was a 4, all of
Why?
the above, but there's not. So you have to pick.
All the above. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, all the above. I mean, there's a little bit of a truth to all of that, right? I feel it's wrong. It's Tucson's team. I'll get back to that in a minute. All our teams end up leaving. Unfortunately, they seem to. And I feel burned by the Coyotes franchise. I think all of Arizona feels burned by at least if you're a hockey fan. But I picked number 1 mainly because I thought, when they established this AHL team here in the Tucson Roadrunners, I thought it was the perfect fit. Of course, you're only 96 miles away from arena to arena, and now that they're leaving, I get that they might have to move that team, but I feel really betrayed that they would be taking it to Phoenix. So that's why I think I'm angry, because this is Tucson's team. If it's going to move because the franchise is sold to Salt Lake City and Salt Lake City wants to put it in Reno or something, that's up to them. But for the owners of the Coyotes now to what appears like being able to retain ownership of the AHL team and then move it to Tempe, it's infuriating to me. It's a slap in the face. It's like, Tucson, you don't matter. We appreciated you when you did us a little service by keeping our AHL team, they're down there, but now we want it in Tempe because we lost our NHL team. That's on them for losing the NHL team, and to take it away from Tucson infuriates me.
What is the history of major league markets losing a team and then putting a minor league team in place? I mean, is the fan base really going to embrace a minor league team? With all the options, sports options in the Phoenix area, an NHL team doesn't have it that easy. You're going to put an AHL team there?
I don't get it.
How many fans do you think are going to show up for that?
It almost sounds like, some of the reporting you and I have read, it almost sounds like that this is a placeholder in Tempe for a future NHL team, an expansion NHL team, that the Coyotes' current ownership is still going to go after that plot of land. They still want to build in North Phoenix. They still want an NHL team there, and they seem to have some kind of a handshake agreement with the NHL. If they somehow are able to pull out funding or buying this plot of land, that they'll build this $2 billion entertainment center, and then the NHL will give them an NHL team again. I don't see it. It's infuriating.
Yeah, I think 1's a good choice. 3, I can understand. All our teams end up leaving. Well, a lot of teams have left for sure. There's truth to all 3. So I like where you're going with all the above. If I'm going to pick 1. I think 1 is the way to go, and maybe that's why I have it there first. This is Tucson's team, and I think they're aware of the ire that this would cause with the fan base down here, because you put the team in Tempe. Let's say they do get an NHL team, then they put the team then back here. It's like
it's just,
you can't play with people like that.
What it is, it's that Phoenix mentality that they're the center of the Arizona universe, and that Tucson is the little stepchild that, aren't you nice down there, Tucson? Here, have our AHL team so we can run our players back and forth because you're convenient, but otherwise we don't really care about you. We're going to take our team back.
That's well put, Pat.
And this is a team that was established here and did fairly well. We've seen that fan base grow, Jason, from a couple thousand fans averaging season tickets. What are they at? 4,100 sale average tickets this season. It's a new record for them. And
yeah, they lost some momentum around COVID, and they've just started to get it back.
right, and so you're right, Jason. It was almost like two starting points for this. The starting point in what was it, 2016 or 2018 when they first started?
Fall 2016.
2016. So you had a little bit of a growth, and then all of a sudden they had COVID, and then they had to rebuild that brand. And this is all, what really infuriates me, Jason? The Arizona Coyotes have been horrible. They've been a terrible franchise in the NHL. They're not competitive, very competitive at all. They don't make the playoffs at all. And yet Tucson has been a success. Tucson has made the playoffs occasionally. And I know that's not what hockey, minor league hockey is about. Minor league hockey is about feeding the major league team. I get it. The NHL in this case. But Tucson has far outperformed the Coyotes in what the Coyotes have reached in Phoenix. Tucson's far exceeded that here in Tucson. And here's your thank you. We're going to take that team and put it in Tempe. This is ridiculous.
Plus, now all of a sudden, the team's getting good with the Arizona Coyotes, right? The last week or so, the team's caught fire. They've got these young stars. They almost remind me a little bit of the Phoenix Suns in the bubble year. Remember the Suns, like won their last 7 games, still missed the playoffs, but they came back next year with a vengeance. Yep. Now Clayton Keller is a bona fide star. Josh Doan's looking like he's going to be one. Yep. You've got these other players now all of a sudden picking up their game, and now they're about to head to Salt Lake.
Yeah, it's just,
you can make it, if you want to feel good, not as bad about it. I think the way you look at it, if you want to feel not as bad, is okay, this actually was Winnipeg's team, to get real. Now they're going to Salt Lake. The Arizona might actually get its own team if they do get an expansion team. And that way you have your own team. It's kind of like the Cleveland Browns of the NFL. They lost their team, but got it back. The Charlotte Hornets lost their team, but got it back. But those were original Cleveland Browns and Charlotte Hornets teams. This was Winnipeg's team. The Coyotes might get their own team. Now, a big if here, and a lot of things have to fall in place here. They got to get the land. They got to fight with environmentalist groups. They got to get the building of the arena. They've got to that's going to take longer. I mean, you're looking at maybe 27 or 28 at the earliest if this works out. There's a lot that has to happen.
And Wally, you're right. I'm sorry you've never been to a Roadrunners game, but it's a lot of fun. And you're mad about it. And it is typical Tempe/Phoenix stuff. The great state of Maricopa County. That's what we always joke about, but there's a lot of truth to that. They think they're the center of the universe. And Jason, even if, and it's a huge if, that they get an NHL team after they build an arena and, they get an expansion team in 4 or 5 years, what would the harm be of leaving the Roadrunners here in Tucson? I mean, as you point out, what's the interest level going to be anyway in a major league city with 3 other major league sports? Why would they care about the Tucson Roadrunners in Tempe? I don't understand why they think that's a great move. Why not leave it here in Tucson, continue to grow and cultivate this fan base so that when you get an expansion NHL team, you'll already have your AHL team here ready to go. I don't understand it.
And all of a sudden, now another ice rink is coming to Tucson, and you're losing the team.
Yeah.
The problems with the ice rink. Now we're gonna have more ice than what we could do with after we didn't have enough ice rinks.
And that's a good point, Jason. Is the youth hockey movement, because of the Tucson Roadrunners, is palpable now.
So they feel they're going to lose that in Phoenix area. That's which has the bigger population. That's what they're afraid of, Pat.
Yeah, but they have ASU hockey. That's let's be honest. They're very successful now. And they have Mullet Arena.
No, they're bigger time than U of A hockey. That's
right. They passed up, and that's fine. That's great for them. But that's where you build your fan base. And if they feel, if the Coyotes ownership right now feels that the Phoenix market is still a viable NHL market, then just hurry up and get your land, build your arena. That putting an AHL team in there is not a substitute to keep the hockey movement going in Phoenix at all. But you're going to ruin the whole atmosphere and youth hockey movement that's going on right now here in Tucson. It's another layer of just total frustration for us Tucsonans having to look up I-10 and see what, how they just decide everything is all about them and all for them. And poor little Tucson, they'll be fine. We'll just move on without them.
Sarah Mahoney, we love going to Roadrunners games. Very frustrating. This all went down Friday night when the game was just starting, the
Right.
Roadrunners game. So fans haven't really had a chance to respond with signs and things like that. I'm curious at the next home game if we're going to see some signs.
I
A couple
would
other
hope so. I would hope
Yeah,
so.
a couple other points. So the NHL now is not going to have a team in the fourth largest city in the United States, Houston, the fifth largest city in the United States, Phoenix, throw in Atlanta, yet they've somehow made it work in Vegas, Columbus, Ohio, Nashville, and other places like that. That's
Mhm.
kind of interesting. And
Yep.
then, Pat, I want to hear what you have to say on this point. There are 32 NHL teams, and they're going to possibly going to expand to 36. 36 teams. I'm not worried about the talent being diluted because the players have gotten so good. I think that that's okay. But here's something else that nobody's talked about that I thought of. If you have 36 teams, Pat, you're going to have a situation where fan bases are going to go 50, 60, 70 years with no Stanley Cup, right? Do the
True.
math.
Yeah.
36 teams, a
Yep.
team would win a Stanley Cup on average once every 36 years, okay? But it doesn't work that way. Teams win back to back.
Teams
There's
get on a roll,
dynasties,
right.
there's other things. You're
Right.
going to have fans go their lifetime with no Stanley Cup. 36 teams sounds like a lot.
Yeah. Well, I got news for you, Jason. Arizona Coyotes never really sniffed a Stanley Cup at all when they were here, and that's
Now, but
part of
now
it.
they might. Now that they're all of a sudden looking good.
Well,
You never know.
at least they'll have a chance, and maybe they just need to get out of Phoenix. I don't know. I think that you're right about you don't want to. The talent is there. I mean, hockey is with so much talent coming from Europe and you still got all the great Canadian and American players now as well. I'm not worried about the talent being diluted, but you're right. There is a point of, yeah, you're just not going to feel like your team has much of a chance ever, year in and year out. There's already some franchises that feel that way anyway, but you're right. You get too many teams, you may never ever see a team that even competes for a Stanley Cup
Yeah, and I don't think
or
can a
whatever.
star player visit every arena in a season now? I'd have to look that up. I'm not so sure. But I remember growing up, the Edmonton Oilers only came to town once a year. That was a really big deal, right?
Right, right.
When Gretzky and company came to New Jersey,
Yeah.
that was the biggest deal in the world. I mean, that was penciled on the calendar. The game was sold out. All types of things. Um, I got to look it up now and see if a star, because your star players got to be in every arena.
No, you're right. You've got that handful of talents, the Sidney Crosbys of the world, where he's worth the price of admission, the Ovechkins, and
Yeah.
and even some of the young players. And yeah, I agree. I think that's part of it. The bottom line is the franchise here just failed, and it failed miserably in a lot of levels, and it's unfortunate. You've got to win, Jason. You mentioned Vegas as a team that succeeded. You mentioned Nashville and Columbus. Well, at least Columbus and Nashville have been competitive. Vegas has won a Stanley Cup in such a short period of time. Like this, you've got to be competitive. You can't just show up and put a franchise in, and they just haven't been competitive.
All right, we've got some early poll results here to our weekly poll question. These are very early. Roadrunners could be moving to Tempe. If this is wrong, it's Tucson's team. All of our teams end up leaving. I feel burned by the Coyotes franchise. Hey, Pat, you said this is wrong, it's Tucson's team, but listening to you more and more, I think you really feel number 3.
No, as we've gone on, I'm burning on the Coyotes because I think that they've done a horrible job with multiple different owners, but this is Tucson's team. My anger is with Phoenix and their attitude towards Tucson, and you can say what you want about there's an inferiority complex. I love Tucson. I think Tucson's way better than Phoenix. I don't care about like a place to live. Tucson is far and away a better place to live than Phoenix. But Phoenix has a lot of things going for it, including major sports teams, which you and I both enjoy going up and seeing them. That's great. But their attitude about just, we're just going to take that little AHL team and put it in Tempe until we can get an NHL team back. That really burns me.
I think from what I'm told, they are aware of that. We're likely going to have so the Coyotes' final game is going to be Wednesday night at home against Edmonton. Tickets are going for over now $2,000 on the resale market. Some of them.
Well, they've only got 4,000 seats, so yeah, it's
right. So that's going to be a great scene with the signs and stuff in the arena. I can't wait for that. We're going to get a news conference apparently Thursday or Friday morning.
By Friday for sure.
Yep. And then we're going to learn more.
Yeah.
We're going to learn more. It's not going to be the first question asked about the AHL team.
No, it won't be. And it may not even be answered in the short term because there's a lot of things. From what I understand, Jason, they still have a couple more years on a lease here with Tucson Arena. Mullet Arena in Tempe has no desire to rearrange its schedule for an AHL team versus an NHL team. So there's a lot of moving parts here that we don't have an answer to. They may have to leave it in Tucson for a little while, and we might be the beneficiary of that. We'll certainly take the Roadrunners and we'll root for the Roadrunners. I think this all gets back to, Jason, and that's part of my, disgust with the Coyotes organization. They put all their eggs in that Tempe entertainment district basket last year, and that was going to be the save for this franchise, and they needed it. And from all accounts, they did a horrendous job of marketing that to the fan base and, to more importantly, to the rest of Maricopa County, because they needed voters to approve that, right? And they did a horrible job apparently, and got on the wrong side of whether it was misinformation or just a campaign against it, or just a feeling that the taxpayers were going to be on the hook, when in actuality, I don't believe that was going to be the case. I think they were going to try to pay for a lot of it themselves, the Coyotes, but they did a terrible job marketing that, and this is all on them. And for them to be forced to sell by the NHL to Salt Lake City, it speaks volumes. It really does.
Yeah, they sold to the NHL, who then turned around and sold it to Salt Lake City for a $200 million extra that they split among the current 31 owners. So it goes to the NHL apparently for $1 million, and then to the Salt Lake City owners for $1.2 million. Hey, not that Delta Center is the greatest arena in the world, know. There's obstructed views. It seats around 14,000. Okay, you can make the jokes. It's a lot better than 5. But that's not exactly a state-of-the-art brand new facility. It's a few decades old. Now, Salt Lake City wants to host the 2034 Olympics, so maybe there's something in the works
to get arena, right?
To get a new, to build an arena that would work for the Olympics, and then also for the Winter Olympics, and would also be the team's home, going forward. So we'll see. It's a very they draw a lot of people for their minor league team. Hockey is a big part of the community there.
And the further north you go,
well, but it's not a major American city like Phoenix is.
No, and the further north you go, you generally get a little bit more of a passion for hockey, and I don't. It's not that there weren't enough transplants and living in Phoenix area to support hockey. I think there really are. I don't think that's the issue. I think you have to put a winning product on eventually, and they didn't do it. And you have to have an arena that's generating revenue, and they never had that, Jason. And so that compounds your issues with trying to compete when you're always up against it financially, because you don't have a sweet arena deal. And whether you own the arena or not, it's hard to get a team to be successful without one.
All right, well put. Let's spend the last couple of minutes on Arizona basketball here and some of the transfer portal news and players leaving. Umar Ballo goes to Indiana. Apparently, he was getting big bucks there. Pat, you didn't admit it until after he left, but I was saying at the time, some of Ballo's stats were a little compiling, okay? All those points and rebounds. He did great against a player who was smaller than he was. You put in a big-time player like an N'Faly Dante or a Zach Edey or anybody else, and he's not the same player. Listen, he's a good player. Don't get me wrong, but he really did not have a great game against Clemson, despite the double-double that everybody thinks is so wonderful. Had difficulty guarding the inbound pass, couldn't shoot the free throws, couldn't get the Clemson player in foul trouble. If Mo Krivas improves from freshman to sophomore year, right, the way Ballo did, the way Azuolas Tubelis did, the way Christian Coloco did, they'll be okay without Umar Ballo.
No, I think they'll be better off. I really do. I think, a couple of things.
Free throws never improved.
No, he was worse. His free throws were awful, and that was a liability for sure. I think I think the Oregon game, the Clemson game, these games, it exposed what the limitations of Umar Bala. Let's put it that way. And then you look at Mo Krivas, as you mentioned, and you think, well, the upside is so much better there. And
Yeah.
sometimes what you have to do is you have to say, okay, if Umar Bala comes back and we have Mo Krivas, that's going to limit the time that Mo Krivas is going to have. So sometimes I'm guessing that conversation with Tommy Lloyd and Umar Bala included, at least in the back of Tommy Lloyd's mind, is we kind of need more minutes for Mo Krivas, and he's not going to get the kind of minutes he needs to develop if we still have Umar Bala.
Or he might get a couple more minutes, and that would limit Balo's minutes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Kylan Boswell. This is a situation also going to the Big Ten, but a situation of going home.
Yes.
He's originally from Champaign, Illinois. The disappointment here isn't Kylan Boswell leaving. The disappointment is how he played this year, right? Because the way he played this year, you're not really losing that much from him leaving, especially with Jaden Bradley coming. To me, we thought he was going to be a stud type of player at the starting point guard this year, and he did not have a great year. You got Jaden Bradley, a former McDonald's All-American who did terrific as a reserve this year, ready to go. So I'm not seeing that as a big loss either. I'm afraid, despite Kylan Boswell's terrific potential.
No, and with Kylan Boswell, you hope the best for him. He seemed like a nice young man, and I think that in this case, you mentioned going home again, and maybe that's where he needs to be. To me, just as an outsider, I don't think the focus was there for him, and I don't know why. And maybe this will help him refocus and going home to Champaign and getting an opportunity to play for that team that he grew up rooting for as well. It might be a great fit. I don't know what his NIL stuff will look like, and maybe that doesn't even matter to him at this point. Is he'll get enough NIL to be okay, and then work on his game. I think the minutes were going to be limited for him, and so I as you said, I think the disappointment isn't that he left. The disappointment is that he never became the point guard we all thought he would.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Even with glimpses of it early in the season, it just never panned out.
And not pictured today, Caleb Love enters the NBA draft with the possibility of returning. My feeling on this, Pat, is college is 4 years for a reason. Some of these 5-year things seem a little unauthentic to me. He's not going to get any better in his 5th year. I almost think, like, unless you're taking a graduate course and that's going to be your career for whatever you're taking in graduate school, I just think it's just kind of time to move on to the next stage of life.
Well, we talked about this. I don't know if it was last week or a couple weeks ago. I really look at Caleb Love as a guy who feels like he let everybody down. He feels like he has unfinished business with the Wildcats. But at the same time,
he's not the only one who played poorly against
correct.
Clemson.
But I think that's just the way he mentally, I think that's where he was at. I think that he also realizes, like you're saying, is maybe it's time to move on to the pros. And I don't know that he'll get drafted. It kind of looks like he wouldn't, but he might sign on quickly with a free agent contract with a team, get a 2-way contract, and go that route. And he has to decide when that happens, is that enough for me to go to the G League, or do I come back for another year at the U of A? At least he's left the door open. I think that's smart to give yourself some options. You don't want to close all the doors without knowing what's going to happen. He's not going to be like Pelle Larsson, probably not going to be drafted even in the second round. So he'll just leave those options open.
Yeah, but to me, you come back for a 5th year, you're not going to improve your draft stock in year number 5, okay? And any NIL money you might be getting this year, you would get more as a pro player if you're overseas. I just think I'm not a huge fan of these 5-year and 6-year players. That's just me. Nothing against Caleb Love. He was terrific at times this year. I just think 4 years is enough. I think it's time to go pro. That's just kind of my feeling on it. And how much he's missed will depend upon how his replacement does. I mean,
right.
If KJ Lewis and comes in and is phenomenal, then they're not going to miss him. If whoever takes his place struggles, then they'll miss Caleb Love. That's just how it is. Without knowing that, I just think it's time for a player at his level, at his age, at his amount of experience, to move on, which is what he would be doing if we didn't have COVID. And his first year wasn't the canceled year. I mean, these guys who might be coming back for year 5 now, their first year just started slow, right? We still had a 21 season, and we 22, 23, 24. So that's just kind of my feeling on things.
Well, and here I'll throw this out too. Is the question is, if you're Tommy Lloyd, what do you do? I think if you're Tommy Lloyd, you have to just look as if he's not coming back, right? You look to replace that scholarship with somebody in the transfer portal who may not be the next Caleb Love, but then again, it might be. They got Caleb Love later later than this last year, so maybe in that situation, is Tommy Lloyd just says, we're moving on. We got to find somebody else to replace that roster spot.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll know a lot more this time next week about the Coyote situation. We'll know a little bit more about the Coyote situation this time next week. We'll know a lot more about the Roadrunner situation. I'd like to think at this time next week, and I'm curious to see some fan reaction at the games. I think we'll see some signs. Maybe do fans still bring signs to games? I mean,
I think most of the time it's hey, can you give me a puck? It's my first hockey game or something.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see some. I want to see some signs. If Sarah Mahoney, if you're still on, bring a sign. I want to see some signs to have them say,
clean.
That means something to me.
But we need to see some signs.
I want to see some signs, Pat.
Okay, clean or not, it doesn't matter to you. Okay,
what's that?
Clean or not, you don't mind?
No, we can't put curse stuff on the air.
No.
I want to see signs, things that I'll give you an example. This is our team. Don't leave us.
Yeah. Hands off Tempe. This is our team.
I like that one. Hands off Tempe. I like that. Hey, you need to bring a sign, Pat.
I need to make a sign up.
Hands off Tempe. I like that. That's a good note to end on. For Pat Parris, I'm Jason Barr. This has been the Huddle, KGUN9's weekly streaming sports talk show. This was a lot of fun. We'll see you right back here same time next week.